For pretty much most of my life, I would say I had been living in what you could call my high-functioning masculine era. A lot of drive, ambition, that kind of get-it-done energy. So when I discovered the concept of feminine energy and feminine leadership, it felt like this antidote. Softness, yes, I am here for it. Flow, surrender. It sounded like the energetic equivalent of a long nap in the sunshine. But here's what happened. I ended up swinging way too far in the opposite direction. And suddenly I was trying so hard to be in my feminine that I actually turned that into another project, another thing on my to-do list. So I was meditating like it was a competition. I had my daily ritual that was all about presence, but again, it just become another thing on my to-do list. I would find myself almost shaming myself into doing my morning ritual on the days when I perhaps didn't feel like doing it, which completely went against the whole concept. Now, I realized that I'd been in this battle between my masculine and my feminine, and I was feeling like I had to pick a side. And I realized that's not what this is about. It's not that masculine is bad and feminine is good. It's not about quitting the structure and just, floating around through life. It's about integration. Both energies are vital. The masculine gives us direction. It gives us purpose. It gives us containment, the ability to hold a vision and actually bring it into reality. And the feminine gives that vision life, intuition, depth. So one of these energies builds the structure, the masculine, and the other one, the feminine, is what I see as the thing that really breathes soul and life into that structure. And without one, we burn out. And then without the other, we can find we are drifting through life. Now, culturally, we have overcorrected towards the masculine. We live in a world that idolizes logic and speed and output, this go harder, do more, achieve everything kind of mentality. But if we romanticize the feminine and really reject the masculine entirely, we're going to end up creating, another imbalanced world. And the world doesn't need more people swinging between these extremes, hustling and then collapsing and then pushing and then just disappearing. It needs people who can hold both of these energies. And this for me is real power, real sustainable power. It comes from energetic harmony. It's knowing when to lead and then also when to listen, when to maybe spend a lot of time planning and strategizing, but then also when to pause. Remember, the goal here is not to become more masculine or more feminine. It's to become whole. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the She Leads podcast, a space that empowers women like you to build success in a way that feels authentic, energizing, and aligned with who you really are. In a world that tries to convince us that success means hustling harder and following everyone else's rules, we're here to rewrite the script. This is about success that feels nourishing, not depleting. Success that brings the fulfillment, impact, and recognition you deserve, whilst ultimately giving you the financial power to create the future you want and inspire meaningful change in the world around you. Make sure to hit the follow button so that you never miss an episode, and come and say hello on Instagram. You can find us at she_leads.academy. Let's dive in.
Hello, ladies, and welcome to a brand new episode of the She Leads show. So for this episode, we're going to explore this imbalance between the masculine and the feminine, how we can get the balance right. Because I think often when there's this conversation about masculine and feminine, the conversation often gets reduced to, men do this, women do that. It's very masculine to be that way, more feminine to be like this way. And the feminine way for women perhaps is better. But actually that's not the case, because it's really about a balance of these two different energies, and they both have a role to play within both men and within women. So this isn't a gender thing. When we talk about masculine and feminine energy, it's not about the difference between men and women, because every human carries both masculine and feminine energetic currents. The masculine is the energy of direction, focus, logic, structure. The feminine is the energy of flow, receptivity, intuition, emotional presence. Now, for many of us, we will know the masculine energy very well because we've probably lived it a lot within our lives. We know how to chase goals, meet deadlines, optimize our schedules, but we're often far less fluent in the language of stillness or intuition or restoration. Rest often feels unproductive. Feelings, they can feel inconvenient. Intuition can often feel like, it's unreliable. We don't trust ourselves. Now, it's not that the masculine energy is bad, far from it. It's essential. But the problem is over-identification with the masculine. The problem is the imbalance. So how does imbalance show up? A number of ways. It might be, I'll rest when everything's done. That's the overextended masculine. It's the part of us that says, I'm just going to go along with what everyone else wants. That's the silenced feminine. So together they form this inner dynamic that mirrors the outer world, doing over being, logic over emotion, control over connection. Now, the masculine, when it's in its healthy form, it's an incredibly powerful force in human nature. So again, it gives us the structure, the direction. So if we think about, let's say we've got a project that we need to do, our masculine is the part of us that says, I'm going to build this. I'm going to create this. I'm going to find a way to make this happen. So it's that sense of clarity, that sense of, okay, I'm just going to get things done. But when that energy becomes disconnected from presence, when it forgets the feminine qualities of intuition or feeling and rest, this is when it turns into its own distortion. This is when it becomes the wounded masculine. And this is the energy that believes that worth must be earned, that love must be proven. So this is where it shows up as achievement addiction, that compulsion to keep producing, keep striving, even when the body is saying, I've had enough. And we can really spot the wounded masculine in the way that we glorify exhaustion, the way that people boast about how little sleep they got, as if extreme tiredness was this form of currency, that rest when I'm dead mentality, which if you think about it, not really an inspiring productivity slogan. Now, underneath all that effort is this deep fear of stillness. Stillness exposes what busyness conceals. It's that discomfort of not knowing who we are without our accomplishments. And many people find silence, just being still, resting, they find it unbearable because in silence, there's nothing to manage or control. The only thing you can do when you're silent and still is actually meet yourself. And that can be a very scary thing. Now, this wounded masculine, when we are too much into our masculine, what's really going on here is we're afraid. This part of us, this wounded masculine, is the part of us that learned that safety comes from doing rather than from being. And if we think about healing the wounded masculine, it's not about shutting this part of us down. It's actually about compassionately reminding this side of us that stillness isn't, something to be scared of. This rest that we are so resistant towards is actually the thing that will restore the strength that we keep chasing. And this is, I think, the paradox here. The masculine thinks like, I'm going to become stronger, or am I going to achieve more if I am just doing more? And actually, it's often the opposite. It's the rest that we're resisting so much. That is going to be the thing that actually restores our strength. Now, the opposite of the wounded masculine is the silenced feminine. So if the wounded masculine is the part of us that runs on overdrive, the silenced feminine is the part of us that forgets she's allowed to exist at all. So the feminine is receptive, it's intuitive, it's creative, it's deeply feeling, and it knows without necessarily knowing how. So it just trusts. It's intuitive, that sense of intuition. But the thing is, we've been taught to mistrust intuition. We have been taught to override that internal voice that says, you know what, something doesn't feel right here. It's because we don't necessarily have that direct evidence. We can second guess our gut feelings, or we maybe dismiss those emotional clues. And we kind of want to have that external evidence, that proof. Now, the silenced feminine, she also expresses herself through overgiving. So this is where she tries to earn her place through service, through caretaking, through emotional labor. So she's the woman who is constantly saying yes to things, even when she's exhausted. Maybe she apologizes for taking up too much space. She worries about being too much, and she's constantly compensating by being endlessly accommodating. Now, overgiving, it's not being generous. It's really just a form of self-abandonment. And then when we're in our silenced feminine, there is also this emotional suppression. So we're often taught culturally, that sensitivity is a weakness. We've got to be composed. That shows emotional maturity. And so we learn to translate our emotions into these socially acceptable languages. So, I'm not sad, I'm just really tired, or I'm just fine, I'm fine, I'm just getting on with things. I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. So what we're doing here is we are shrinking our inner world to make others basically feel more comfortable. But when this emotion is silenced, this is when expression dries up. So this is when our creativity, our sensuality, it's almost like these things become muted. Now, ultimately, what the silenced feminine wants is she just wants to be trusted again. So she's learned that softness is unsafe, that being emotional is inconvenient for other people. But what she wants is not to be dominant or to be in control. That's not what the feminine energy craves. She wants to be trusted to guide through feeling. But she's not trying to make this comeback where she's taking over the masculine entirely. Remember, it's not about rejecting structure, logic, reason. That's not what reawakening the feminine is about. It's about remembering that logic without empathy isn't going to work. Action without feeling or honoring our boundaries isn't going to work. So the power of returning to our feminine, it's not this big rebellion where the feminine kicks out the masculine, but it's really about just remembering her. It's like she's a part of this deal as well. Now, so we've got these two sort of distortions then. We've got the wounded masculine and we've got the silenced feminine. And again, these are not separate forces battling for dominance. They are partners in this codependent dance. Both need each other, but they're trying to figure out, they just can't get their footwork right. So they're treading on each other's toes, basically. They just can't seem to kind of get the rhythm and the flow right. So when it's the wounded masculine stepping on the feminine's toes, this is where we see, systems obsessed with performance, with output. But then if we team that with the silenced feminine, she's conditioned to accommodate. She adapts to survive within those systems. So she's editing herself, she's softening her edges, she's becoming fluent in the language of efficiency, even when her intuition screams that something is off. So we see this in the corporate world where, it's maybe just a meeting full of people just nodding along to an idea that feels wrong because they're not trusting themselves to speak up. We see it in personal lives too. We see the person who can manage everyone else's expectation, but can't actually figure out what it is that they really want, what their desires are. Now, it's easy to think that the wounded masculine is the villain here, but the truth is the wounded masculine is exhausted. He's terrified as well of collapsing. And the silenced feminine, by staying quiet, she unknowingly enables the very imbalance that is draining her. So her silence validates his dominance. And his dominance then justifies her silence. So we've got this kind of very painful loop going on. Now, restoring the balance here is not about overthrowing one energy for the other. It means integration. It's bringing the intuitive back to inform the strategic. It's bringing back emotions to humanize that analytical energy. It's allowing softness to exist beside strength. Now, when you do start integrating these different energies, the masculine and the feminine in you is probably tired of holding everything together. The feminine in you is probably tired of not being trusted. But when they finally start cooperating, when you allow both to have a voice, things really begin to soften. You'll find decisions become a lot easier. It's like your body exhales. It's like, finally, I can actually get a lot done, but not from this sense of pressure or panic, but from a sense of joy and ease and flow. And it just feels so relaxing and so joyful to be able to create, because I'm no longer having to live up to these incredibly high productivity benchmarks. So how do we restore this balance then? Well, I think one of the first things you can do is actually to slow down and feel before you decide on something. So if you've been living in go mode for a very long time, pausing just doesn't feel like a natural thing. Slowing down, it can often feel like the opposite of progress. But actually, it's the prerequisite for aligned action. So before saying yes to something or deciding on something, do I feel expanded by this or contracted by this? This is your feminine speaking. It's your body's intuitive compass. Let her inform the next move before your mind just kind of tries to strategize through something. Just intuitively lean in, like, what is the next move for me here? And then before you rush on to another project, which so often of us do, we move from one thing to the next in life, like it's this sort of conveyor belt. We finish a project, then we start the next. And rather than doing this, in between doing and becoming, there is meant to be this pause. There's meant to be this moment to integrate. And so it might be as small as, a walk in silence before you check your phone. How often do we perhaps finish a task and then think, right, what's next? And we look at our phone to maybe check an email or see what's next on our to-do list. But how about just using a little bit of space, even if it's just for 1 minute, to just sit in silence and be with yourself before you just push through onto that next task? We also need to have more emotional hygiene. This is where we're reading the signs. So this is really about self-awareness, noticing when you've tipped too far into distortion. So let's say you're in a wounded masculine. This is when you can't rest without guilt. This is where you feel like you just have to control everything because that feels safer than to just trust things. It's where every moment needs to be justified by productivity. Or maybe you're in chaotic feminine. This is where you're just floating around without any focus. You're endlessly feeling into what it is you're feeling, but you're rarely following through with things. Maybe you're mistaking emotional intensity for progress. So harmony is that middle ground where focus meets the flow. So it's really about, again, finding that balance. But finding balance and not perfection here. So balance, when we try and balance something, this isn't something that we achieve once and then we just hold that balance forever. It's something that we're constantly having to feel our way through. And this isn't about swinging between extremes, okay? It's not about going only into the feminine where it's just all flow and just no direction at all, because that can leave us feeling very ungrounded and actually quite overwhelmed. We need both energies. We need the masculine to give us that focus and follow through, but then we need the feminine, which gives us that creativity and connection. So it's not about choosing one over the other. It's about letting them work together. Now, if you are a coach or you are perhaps thinking about starting your own online coaching business, this work between the masculine and the feminine is a huge part of the work that we do within the She Leads Academy. This is, first of all, for you to really redefine how you succeed, how you lead, how you make an impact, how you make money, but then also being able to help other women through the same. Those women who've perhaps been stuck in their feminine and believe that is the only way to success. So if you'd like to explore this further for yourself and for the women that you may want to lead, then you can head to she-leads.co. and you can explore all of the options for working with us. You can also schedule a call with one of our team. It's a non-obligation call. There's no pressure or necessity to sign up to anything during that call. It's just to explore all of the different options for integrating this work into your life and into your business moving forwards. So thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye, ladies.
If today's episode lit something up in you and you are ready to build a coaching business that not only changes lives but creates the income and freedom you deserve, then right now you can request a free trial of our She Leads Academy coach training. To get your free trial, just head over to Instagram and visit us at she_leads.academy. You will find the link to the free trial in our bio. I cannot wait to see what's possible for you.